You know, it would be really sweet if I had like a guitar solo to start out every one of these things. All right. Here we are. It's this week in Cassandra. What's today? It's May 13th. Coming to the world with the Cassandra news. So what do we got here? I'm John Haddad, right? Technical evangelist for DataStax. We've got Luke Tillman, also technical evangelist for DataStax. Lovely to see you, Luke. And Julian Argonaut. He's the VP of Engineering for Island Cloud. I'm sorry, I can't actually pronounce your last name correctly.
It's kind of becoming a theme with the last name thing.
Yeah, I can't pronounce anybody's last name. Thanks for coming on, Julian.
Hey guys.
So today we're going to be talking about we got some Cassandra news, and we're going to be talking about Julian's experiences with putting Cassandra 3.0 into production. So new-ish kind of release, you know, getting ahead of the ball, having a good time in the open source world. But first, let's talk about materialized views. So Jonathan Ellis, lead for Apache Cassandra, all-around good guy, just posted a blog post in the DataStax blog about materialized views and their performance. Luke, you had an opportunity to look this over. What'd you think?
So it's cool to actually see some performance numbers, because I know a lot of people, are interested in materialized views. I think just from a usability standpoint, not having to do all the manual denormalization, manage that in your code anymore is pretty attractive, I think, for a lot of developers. But it's also interesting to see the performance numbers and kind of gauge, not only what kind of impact does this have on your writes, but then, I was actually kind of shocked or surprised, how, some of the read performance numbers that he showed in the blog. So cool to actually have some numbers and a tool, that's open source that you can go and test for yourself if you want to try, see what your own performance is like.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about materialized views is when people come to the Cassandra world, like Luke, you and I have taught like 3,000 classes on moving from relational to Cassandra. I think the number one thing that people kind of get hung up on is, secondary indexes. And the reality is that most of the time you're actually going to want to use materialized views, especially if you're selecting from a single partition. And it's cool to see that performance differentiation as the cluster gets bigger. You can see materialized view performance get better, and secondary indexes kind of level off. Good to know.
Yep. Julian, you said you guys haven't done anything with materialized views yet, but you're thinking about it.
Yes. So basically, I think, as you said, we're interested in the usability part of the materialized view to have a better or cleaner data model. And as you said, we were waiting for performance benchmarks to try to basically put that in place. So we actually have planned internally with some of our table layout to migrate and basically do some testing. So as you said, awesome that we start having numbers showing up, and the tooling to actually measure for ourselves the actual performances. So yes, we will be definitely looking at it in the near future, now that we are running Cassandra 3.0 in production.
Yes, 3.0 in prod, and we are definitely going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But before we do, we get to talk about something I wrote. What?
So John, you wrote a blog post this week. Surprise!
Yeah.
So working relationally, you actually are on this list twice. This list of blog posts, if you're following along in the blog post on Planet Cassandra. So John and Danny Traphagen wrote a post together, and then John wrote one himself about working relationally with Cassandra. And so this was kind of about using Spark and Cassandra, but with SQL, Spark SQL. So why did you even why did you even write a blog post like this?
So I will let's touch on one thing. So the previous post, the first one with Danny, that's a kind of a preview as to what this kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about at OSCON, which is going to be next week. So if you're watching this and you're going to be at OSCON and you're interested in learning about Cassandra and Spark, we still have a few spaces left in our 3-hour tutorial. It's going to be hands-on. You get a VM, you can play with stuff. There's examples that you can run, and you're going to be coding in this tutorial. So I just want to get that out there.
And you can meet John and myself in person.
And we can hang out and take friendship shots, which will be amazing. The second part with the Spark SQL. So the reason why I wrote this post is there's a lot of really good documentation in the Spark world, and then there's some stuff that's poorly documented. And unfortunately, the Spark, like using the Spark SQL and like the Hive like side of things is not documented well at all. And people would like DataStax has done a lot of work to kind of make this stuff work well and in a straightforward manner. But outside of that, there's like no documentation. So I took a look at what was going on and poked around and made it so that you can take the connector and you can fire up the Spark SQL shell and basically create tables in Spark SQL that map to your Cassandra tables, and then you can do like joins and aggregations and some of the more like Hive style analytical queries like rank and dense rank. That stuff is really, really cool. And like I said, there's just no docs around it, so I figured the world needed a blog post.
Yeah, not a lot of people probably realize you can get SQL against your Cassandra cluster, even easier if you're using DataStax Enterprise, but because we don't have to do all the setup. But yeah, you can absolutely use Spark with Cassandra. So one thing I noticed in the blog post that I definitely wanted to ask you about. So you're talking about sort of exploring this movie lens data set. And as setup, you do this step where you do a pip install and then you do a CDM install. So you're pip installing Cassandra Dataset Manager, and since I know that you were responsible for this project, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what CDM is and kind of why you did it.
Sure. So I sort of like glossed over that, and it's like a pretty big point. And I had a previous blog post which kind of showed it off a little bit, but the Cassandra Dataset Manager is, if you're looking to learn Cassandra, right now what normally happens is you download Cassandra, and then like maybe you read some blog posts and you come up with like a data model which is probably wrong, because especially if you're coming from the relational world, it's just not intuitive to think like, oh, everything I learned in the relational world is wrong when it comes to scalability, right? Like people are like, oh, I'd have to do joins. It's like, no, Cassandra, you're not really going to be doing joins. You have to model your tables how you're going to query them. And so what I realized was, and this actually goes back to a talk I had with Patrick McFadden 2 years ago, what we need is a way to install sample data sets for the purposes of learning. And so I built this tool, Cassandra Dataset Manager, which effectively treats Cassandra data kind of like how you would treat like packages in Debian or in Red Hat. So you can just do CDM install, and you give it the name of the data set, and it will just load your Cassandra cluster for you. And it's just really nice to be able to use a tool like this in blog posts, so I don't have to come up with, okay, we're going to install this data model, and here's some sample data, and blah, 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 blah. It's just nicer to go, well, just install this, and you get, like, hundreds of thousands of records as opposed to, like, 4, which is what normally happens when you're talking about a data set. So
how are package, like, so you did CDM install Movie Lens small, like how are packages actually managed? Do you have a registry set up, or what are you doing under the covers there?
Yeah, it's kind of a little hairy. Well, I don't know about hairy. Let's go with fun. So what I do is each data set is really a Git repo, and the CDM maintains its own list of data sets. So you can, just like an apt repo, you can do apt CDM update, and it will fetch the latest list of repos. And those will just basically have descriptions and text information about them, along with a reference to a Git repo that you can download. So when you do CDM install Movie Lens small, in the background it's actually cloning a Git repo, pulling the corresponding tag that you're looking for, and running this installer script, which is based on Python and Pandas and some other things like that.
So these are like hipster data sets, carefully curated, small batch.
They are curated small batch data sets. And the idea here, though, is that if we can get enough data sets in, like for instance, Movie Lens, we can start to build machine learning tutorials, right? And they're nice because they're reproducible. You can just download, you can install the data set, and then you can download some Jupyter Notebook or some sample code, or maybe you can download a .NET application which does it one way, and you can kind of follow along. And when it comes to learning, like having 20 tutorials that all use the same set of data models, or the same set of data models, gives you kind of a lot of flexibility there. So I know that like Danny, who I'm co-speaking with at OSCON, is going to be writing some data sets to do like a lot of medical research. Like there's like an open diabetes related data set, and she's going to pull that one into CDM. Things like cancer rates and various economic data sets. Like we can have some really, really cool things. And then Patrick is working on getting killer, like we were messing around with killer weather, and we've kind of talked about killer video, getting support for that in there. So it's like, you can just have these like a dozen or 24 curated data sets, and then build this kind of ecosystem around stable data models.
Yep.
That's where it is.
So back to the like kind of topic of the blog post real quick, and just to ask Julian this. So Spark, are you guys doing anything with Spark integration on your Cassandra data? Like, are you guys using it at all, or are you guys doing analytics at all on your Cassandra data?
So currently we do the analytics directly off the Cassandra database, and we have basically a GE cluster on top of it to perform all this with APIs. Now, we've been doing research at the moment to integrate Spark, and for one reason is that so we're a cloud provider. Okay, so we have 6 data centers, and we would like to start analyzing and streaming the actual network that's basically coming in and out of our data centers. So as you can imagine, these are like pretty heavy and large data, like constantly like coming in and out. And for that, we will be using Kafka and Spark. So we've been like working on it and doing some R&D. It's not yet in production, but this is definitely something that we are looking forward to start deploying for some initial use cases around the actual network analysis by the end of the year.
Cool. So that's kind of a good background as to what you're doing. And I think this is kind of where we shift gears now. You were talking before about how your migration to 3.0. How did that go? Like, what did that look like for you guys?
All right. So I mean, we've been running Cassandra in production since 2.0. So we did 2.0 in 2013, then 2.1 the year after. And this year we did 2.2 and 3.0. And let me explain you why we did 2.2 first. So 2.2, if you want one good reason to actually go to 2.2 before 3.0, that would be because of the drivers. There's that new Java driver that has some incompatibility. And I actually choose to go to 2.2 to firstly migrate the application on the new driver, making sure that everything was okay before going through 3.0. That avoids you having the application and the new driver migration to do at the same time as the actual database. So that has been actually working pretty good for us. And if any of the driver guys on Java are listening right now, awesome job on the documentation, awesome job on everything around the driver, because it's been really easy to take the documentation and migrate the application with the documentation. Everything was just spot on.
Yeah, I definitely second that. I love the work the driver guys have done.
So that's how we did it. So it's been pretty easy going to 2.1 to 2.2. Honestly, super easy with the driver. Everything was working fine. And in opposition to the 2.0 to 2.1 migration, that required some different tuning and a little bit of hardware bump when that happened at the time. It's been mostly flawless. Now 2.2 had pretty awesome stuff as well. It was the Bootstrap resume, which when you're basically dealing with multiple data centers and a certain amount of nodes is really, really critical. That basically saving time because the stream can fail. So that was like a pretty big win by itself.
Yes, you know why I'm fist pumping? Because I think that was my Jira.
The Bootstrap resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good job, man. Because honestly, it's
I didn't actually do any work.
I mean,
I was just like, we need this.
yeah. I mean, for me, just that plus the ability to run, the new driver against Tutu. That's really a good, in my opinion, a good step. Pretty easy one to make sure that everything's okay, and you're getting the bootstrap resume, which is honestly super handy for us.
And that worked really well for you.
Yes, that
Awesome.
that was easy. Almost no changes as far as configuration, like same hardware.
Cool.
I've been monitoring that for like 2, 3, 4 weeks. I don't remember at the time, but everything was okay.
How
And
long
then
does it take for you to bootstrap a new node?
to bootstrap the new node, you mean like with the dataset and everything?
Yeah.
Well, that can take a while.
Yeah.
Can take a while. We have in between 1 terabyte to 2 terabyte on the node, so you can imagine. I mean, it can take a while, right?
Yep.
But usually we don't need like a lot of elasticity. We have pods in every data center, with a certain amount of resources, and I'm monitoring. We can basically anticipate the growth as it comes because we know the amount of VMs that are getting bootstrapped on our cloud at that point.
Yep.
So after what we did is that once the application was migrated, running off the new Java driver against Tutu, we started migrating to 3.0. And it's been mostly okay, but we've been hitting a couple of roadblocks. So let's talk about the good thing first, about 3.0.
Mm-hmm.
And the awesome thing that we've seen is the disk space used compare in between 2.2 and 3.0 with the new storage engine. For us, it's been quite interesting because we could see up to, I would say, 20% disk saving on disk after the nodes were basically migrated with the new SS tables.
Nice.
So yeah, that was really nice. We were actually quite surprised about it, and that's been really good.
Cool.
What else can I say? So yes, we got like minor issues, maybe a little bit more on the actual SS table itself. A couple of corruptions while migrating it, but honestly, considering the size of the refactoring for the storage layer, I was really anticipating way more problems than that. So overall. Great upgrade, and one huge benefit that you get as well with 3.0 is the hints. So the hints, so there's two things about the hints. So first, it's not in the SS tables anymore, which is never been like really working right, and I guess this is one of the reasons why it's been put back on on the file system, right?
Yep.
So before you used to have to to watch the hints, truncate the hints that were just like stuck there. You had compactions going on the hints, etc. And with 3.0, you don't have that anymore. It's mostly perfect. You just have a couple of hints, getting stuck on file system, super easy to truncate. So that's a good one as well.
Awesome. Have you seen any performance metric? Like, do you think that before you were seeing performance problems as a result of hints?
No, well, yeah. So the hints, the problem is that wasn't really performance problem as such. That was just that I had to monitor them and make sure to take care of them. So I was using actually the Spotify tools at the time. They had like a batch of tooling to do that. That was like pretty handy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't have to do that. I have actually removed that. So I'm monitoring the hints, of course, making sure that everything's okay. But I can tell you after several weeks having 3.0 in production, that's really is a huge improvement.
Cool.
The other thing as well is that you can now disable or enable on a per data center basis the hints delivery in 3.0, which is like really awesome because depending on the latency, you will want to tune it. We have data centers in Singapore and we have them as well in Central America and East side in the US. So it's been really handy for us as well.
Awesome. Yeah, those are definitely a big upgrade. I was very happy to see that. I mean, there's a lot of people that they talk about the problems with hints and how they can actually result in a poorly performing cluster like perform even worse due to the compaction problems that result from it. So that's definitely a good reason to upgrade.
That was definitely the case. If you don't monitor the hints with 2.1 or 2.2 cluster. Definitely, you'll have basically the compaction threads being busy, stuck on compacting hints. That's basically what's happening. So you can remediate to it once you know this is the case. You can basically take care of it pretty easily. But the fact that you don't have to do that anymore with 3.0, super huge win for us.
Nice. Operations win. Love ops.
And I want to mention something as well. Like you guys have been doing an awesome job with the documentation. if you check the upgrade documentation section that you, or the upgrade guide, I don't remember how you guys calling it nowadays, but really complete. I mean, everything's in there as far as the tips, the good practice, the thing that you have to not do when you do a migration. So so people basically don't be afraid of upgrading. It's mostly doing great.
Awesome. It's nice to hear a major upgrade like this get a endorsement from someone running a fairly decent sized cluster. So I'm happy with that.
I'm a happy user at the operation level.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're about out of time. So, Luke, is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, hopefully we'll see some people that listen to this at OSCON. Come say hi at John's talk, or we'll be at the DataStax will have a booth there, so come say hi at OSCON.
Yep, we'll be around.
See you at OSCON, guys.
Yeah, and you'll be at OSCON, right, Julian?
I will be there as well, yes.
Because I believe you're right around the corner. If you can't tell, you're from Texas.
That's right.
Cool. All right. Well, Julian, thanks for coming on and talking with us about 3.0.
Thanks, guys.
Definitely enjoyed this. I think we can sign off. Deuces.